Okay, here we go. And yo. What's up, everyone? It's a little delayed, Nuno. See, it says that we're not on there, but people are getting
man. I'm a little delayed too, psychologically, so it'll match up.
So, okay, so I saw this post that you did the other day with your your Van Halen-ish guitar. Oh my God, that was so insane. It's once again, so you start playing and all my friends are calling me.
That's so funny. No, man, that guitar, as far as Edward's version of that guitar, for me, is the one that visually and just, I don't know, something in my childhood and upbringing that all the other guitars were great. But there's something about that Van Halen 2 artwork, and I just stared at it with him with that Bumblebee. And I always obsessed over it, and I never bought a replica or anything else. And then a friend of mine told me about this dude in Texas that he trusted to do his guitars. And so I asked him, sent him an N4 body, and he did the exact paint job. And, we copied the sort of cream color pickup, but it's still an N4 setup, but single pickup. And I just broke it in the LA show, never played it. A maple neck for me playing live is a trip.
Why?
Wow. I mean, I don't know where to begin. First of all, looking at it.
Yeah.
If you've been looking at dark wood and the opposite color of dots, next thing you know, your fingers, everything looks different and it looks alien to you. It's so bizarre. Like, I was panicking. I even chose, and I even go like, let me break it in and do it on stage. Let me bring the Bumblebee while I'm playing Bumblebee, which is like, that's not the smart thing to do.
Right.
And, but I'm like sweating through it, but I'm like, this is insanity. And the feel of the wood is just like, what is happening? Like, but I'm like, now I've used it in about 4 or 5 shows and I'm obsessed with it now.
Okay. So on Ed's guitar, did he have any type of lacquer or anything on his fingerboard?
I don't think
so. Do you remember?
I don't know, but this one really doesn't have much of a thick lacquer or anything. Everything looks kind of like matte and like raw, and but it plays really nice, man. I'm excited about it.
That is so awesome.
It's so cool. Very cool. Morello actually posted with it. I'm upset with him. He came to the show backstage, and I'm like, hey, check out this guitar. I'm going to break out tonight. I took a picture with him, and it was already before I even went on stage. He's with the guitar. I'm like, all right, Tom. Thank you for blowing my surprise. No, but that was a great way to do it. Tom was excited about the guitar more than I was.
Okay, so you'll play it tomorrow, right?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I break it out and I do it for Bumblebee, and then I do it for Get the Funk Out at the end of the show. It's so cool. I do like 3 or 4 little vignettes of tributes to Edward throughout the show, like quietly. Just kind of do some little nods.
Okay, so how's your chops nowadays, right? With you playing every
Man,
day?
when you're on tour, you're like
insane, right?
Yeah, you feel like, wow, I didn't know I could play like this. feel a bit invincible. You go up on stage and it's just like it's 2 hours of just relentless.
Okay, do you go back and do you practice though? Do you play during the day at all or no?
No.
You just pick up your guitar right when
yeah,
you walk on
as a
stage.
matter of fact, it's interesting because I was telling you before we got on how physical our shows are.
Yeah.
And we went from warming up and doing all these crazy things to the point where we're just like so exhausted. It's like you play the show before you play the show. It doesn't work. So we kind of go up for the first time in my life and career, no warm up or anything before you go on all day.
Yeah.
You pick up the guitar right as you're walking on stage, and there's something really cool about you're already in that zone. I read this thing about Lionel Messi, the greatest, who I think is the greatest footballer of all time. And all the players that weren't shared a locker room with him, they're all like in the weight room, they're doing everything. He shows up, shoots a few hoops in the thing. He's like, and he goes on, and then he rules, and he takes over the whole, because he practices and he preps all week for that.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like to get tired before he gets tired, which makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know. So we found that I feel a bit better when I go up and I don't sit there and do scales and warm up. Just something really, and it's also kind of like you don't burn yourself out in the playing field.
Right.
And it leaves this sort of this non-calculated version of the show where you go up and it feels like you're kind of a little bit, on the edge of.
So back in the day, though, would you?
Oh my God, yeah.
You never put the guitar down.
Shut the door an hour before show and sit there and go through everything and warm up and get everything so you can go out there and enjoy the Olympics. But I found that when you kind of just relax, I used to be amped up and sometimes I'd play worse because. It's just so important. You got to go up and there's an audience, and especially if the guests come to the show, like you coming tomorrow, or we play London and Brian shows up and goes, "Oh man, I got to really." Now it's just, fuck it, and you just sit back, and you find that when you're relaxed, you play even cleaner and faster. It's up here. It just isn't getting your way. It's just,
you can't play any cleaner or faster.
Yes, yeah. I think I can play worse and sloppier. That much I know. I might not be able to go cleaner and faster in my department, but I can definitely play worse and sloppier.
Everybody comes back to your time feel is so good, man.
I think that's probably because of when you do see the show, the compliment that I get all the time at the end of the show, nobody talks about the guitar playing, but just like, you guys are so tight. The band, the rhythm section, everything is so tight. And I'm like, well, after 38 years of fucking playing, I hope the band is tight.
You better be good, right?
We better know what we're doing, or else we got bigger problems than that, man.
Let me see here. Is anybody...
Is this everybody, man?
Yeah.
What is going on? It's mayhem over here.
People are asking questions here, but I can't...
It's not the IRS, is it, looking for me?
No.
Right. All right.
Let's see. Okay. Hey, Nuno, big fan of the channel. Love you playing. What do you think of Brian May saying Get the Funk Out is the best guitar solo ever? Yes. Brian was... I remember when he talked about that years and years ago.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Listen, I'm going to have to agree with him. It's the greatest solo of all time. No, of course, I don't know what to say to that. When Brian May, he said it a long time ago when the album first came out. We're talking way back.
Way back.
When Porn Graffiti came out.
Yeah.
We were playing in London, and he walked into the dressing room, and obviously he towers over you. Brian's so tall. And he's like, what kind of person creates a solo like that? Who does that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Is that a good thing? Because I was waiting for him to say that was the biggest piece of shit you've ever played. He goes, no, I'm trying to work it out. I don't understand. What is happening? And he does it so polite. He says it so politely. That was the worst British accent of all time, by the way.
It was pretty bad.
It was quite extraordinary, really. That's what he said.
There you go.
But more recently, he's been saying some things. Somebody sent me something a week ago, in some article that he proclaimed that I was like...
Oh my God, I've seen him air guitar it and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He loves that solo.
He loves it.
What's not to love, man?
But I also think with Brian, when people talk about why is Brian call you out, he did something on Howard Stern recently when he asked him about like who he thought what the guys were, and he put me like in the same breath as Beck and stuff like that, and even Howard Stern made fun of me because of that. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think Brian relates to me as a player because I come so much from a school of his.
Yeah.
Not even just in the guitar playing, but in the fact of the songwriting, and he composes within the song. He always played the most memorable solos, and he likes when people play for the song.
Yeah.
He's never been like, oh, I'm going to do a solo album, or he's never going to do like that sort of thing. So I think he connects with me because of that. I think we both have that in common because I got to interview him when I was like 23. And Guitar Player, or I think it was Guitar Player, I hope it was, sorry guys, or Guitar World said, we want you, you're an up-and-comer, we want you to interview some of your heroes and the guys that, and we were supposed to do go figure, you and I know this, we're supposed to do a 45-minute interview, cut to like 3 or 4 hours later, because I was going so deep into albums that he's like, how do you know about these songs and Queen 2 and everything, and it wasn't the usual Bohemian Rhapsody questions, it was like, wait, what are you talking about? Fairy Feller's Master Stroke? Nobody even has ever mentioned that title. So we really connected that, talking about songs within songs and how important it is to service that song and how much more powerful a solo is when you do that instead of just show off for the sake of showing off. It's the thing that we talked about where how Edward can have Eruption on one album, change the world, change guitar playing, and then like a track or two later, he's doing Ain't Talking About Love solo that almost a starter could almost play. It's
sure.
2 notes going din, 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 and it's like 60 seconds long, 30 seconds long, but he played for the song. He played what was right for the song. I always thought Edward did the same thing.
Okay, how loud do you think his amp was on those first couple records in the studio?
You know what?
And would you think he stood in front of it? Did you ever I just wonder about that. It just seems like it's so insanely loud, and and the way that people recorded back then. That the pictures you see is the cabinets out in the room with them.
Yeah, I think he was in the room. I think you can hear the difference. You can tell in a guitar, I think right away on album, whether somebody's in front of the amp or they're not. There's this havoc, this sort of like sound that happens where the actual pickup is not just picking up strings, it's picking up everything. It's picking up this weird, it's almost like, it sounds like there's a third mic. If they're using two or if there's, it sounds like it's its own mic as well. And it's kind of this weird boxiness in the room that you could tell when people did it, when Blackmore did it, and Edward did it, and Brian May did it. Like,
Brian plays loud.
It comes in and it just sounds like it's like a hammer going. It's like something slamming the guitar. It doesn't sound. It sounds inhuman. It doesn't sound like just fingers. It sounds like there's other shit going on in that room.
When I interviewed Brian on Zoom a few years ago, he was playing his guitar, and I said, I could tell it was loud. I said, how far away is your amp? And you know, AC30s are definitely loud. And he's diming the thing, and he says, I think he said like 30 meters. And I was thinking, like, 30 meters?
30 meters,
like,
isn't that like the neighbor next door? Like that's the, yeah.
He goes, that's about 30 meters away. I'm like, man.
The loudest Brian May solo to me, and if you gotta go and check it out, it's just like on off the Night at the Opera album. There's a lot of stuff earlier on, but the Night at the Opera album, specifically Death on Two Legs, the song. And it comes in, and he's playing the riff that's like the first time I think I really heard, like, I feel like the whole Seattle Alice in Chains sound was created when he goes, gong, 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 gong. And he's like, wait a second, he's fucking tuned down. Like, what is happening here?
Okay, so
I've never heard anybody do that before.
I think that this is very interesting you say this. I think that Brian May and the Seattle sound are very similar. The Prophet song, the drop tuning and that and everything. And so Brian, I got the multi-track to that, and I haven't done my breakdown video of it because I don't know how to approach the song because I can't wrap my mind around the bridge section of the solo vocal part.
Yeah.
But Brian's guitar parts on there are so good, and when I hear it, I hear that's like the Seattle sound.
Yeah. It reminds me, like, I feel like he was almost like if people always equate to Tony Iommi as far as, you know, the godfather of grunge and whatever it may be, but I'm sorry, that's here in a certain in a safe place, in a deeper place, like even with King's X and some of the Soundgarden stuff, that detune stuff. Brian, I think, was doing that, and nobody really talked about it.
Right.
And you go listen to Death on Two Legs or other songs, or even when he did Fat Bottom Girls.
Fat Bottom Girls, that's grunge.
Yeah,
right there.
and he's but that's solo. Go put that solo on, and it sounds like a Mack truck is like starting in the first note, like a pick is. I don't know what's happening in there. I can't work it out, but the solo of Death on Two Legs when it comes in, it's like the whole studio's fucking a Mack truck drove through the fucking studio. It's unbelievable. I've always heard in headphones. I almost want to take my headphones on, even though you can control it. I want to take them off because it felt loud. You felt like, wow, something is going on there in volume.
Yeah, I know that Brian plays loud for sure.
I don't play that loud.
See, but I have a theory with Brian because Brian's so tall and the AC30
it goes, hits him in the knees,
right?
Hits him in the clogs that he wears.
Okay, so when people played stacks, Nuno, were the top stacks plugged in? Was that when Hendrix was the top cabinet plugged in? What do you think?
Man, I actually think...
Do we know about this or no?
I don't think we know about it, but I think because it was in the era that it was...
They needed the volume?
They needed the cabinets to cover the crowds they were playing. The PAs didn't do it. They had like Shure Vocal Masters that we had like for rehearsal in the 70s. And you know, people were using what they were using for a PA in a stadium. We had them like in our basement. My older brother had them as a PA to rehearse with.
Right.
It's insane. So I think for amp-wise, they needed to be up and angled to hit the balconies. Like what they were invented for is what they were using them for. I feel. I wasn't there.
I think you're right about that.
I believe it.
That the slant cabinets were made for that, right?
They were made to hit you here, and the slants weren't to be able to put on the floor. We use them on the floor for us to monitor.
Right.
But they were made to hit arenas, stadiums, balconies, theaters, you know, and I think one of the last of the Mohicans who kind of did that, and he's still doing it, is Yngwie.
Right.
Yngwie is still doing it, and I got the ringing in my ears to prove it. I did a tour
cabs.
With him. Oh yeah, and they were behind me when we did Generation X. They were behind me. I used to go in and plug one of his cabs behind me when I jammed with them. He still doesn't know about that.
It's funny because he told me that he would buy Marshall Plexis for $30 in Sweden back in the early '80s, and he said, people just like didn't care about them. like 60s plexis and stuff, and they sell them for nothing.
It's like buying a Honda, and like when the Honda, and you're going like, yeah, that thing's not going to be worthless. What do I care? But you don't know. Yeah. You don't know until you know, and you're like, whoa, wait a second, that Honda is now, it's like a one of a kind, 30 grand per head. It's like amazing.
Let's see here.
Man.
Hold on, see here.
Does that say Frank Tranzowski?
Wonderful surprise to see you guys together. It was wonderful to meet you when you were in Melbourne recently. Hope all is great with you. Were you so you were in Melbourne recently?
Yeah, we did the whole run that we did in the U.S. with Living Colour in Australia. It was awesome. So good. So good. We did it there, and we did it in Europe, UK. Since since June we've been going. This is the second United States run, but from the first US we went to Australia, then we did Japan.
Wait a minute, so you've been touring that whole time?
Whole time. We had Christmas off.
Because I was going back to make my thumbnail today. I was going back to our pictures together, and I was going back and back and back and back. And it was like last May or so.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, has it been that long that he's been on tour?
It's been that long that we've been going, and it's like, so yeah, definitely it's a good time to see the band live. We're definitely well rehearsed. We got our shit together finally, and it's feeling good, and doing. I think the biggest surprise of the shows, and I know you're coming tomorrow night, which is super exciting, but is that I always ask this question 4, 5, 6 songs in, and I started doing it by accident. I go, how many people here are seeing Extreme for the first time? And I'm telling you, 50 to 60% of the audience is seeing Extreme for the first time, even though we've been, 6th album, we've been around for 38 years. But the new album, and between you and what you've done and what you do for guitar players and the awareness that you give through your love through guitar and what we did here on the show. I've had people come into our VIP meet and greets and I asked them like, who's first time? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I discovered you on the Rick Beato show. And I'm like, he goes, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I did go back in the albums. I'm like,
that's absurd.
Yeah, but
but
it's
that's
just
cool, though.
New music and usually when a new band has new songs out, whether it's, I used to go see Rush or whatever, you always want to hear the Tom stories and you want to hear Red Barch. You want to hear all the stuff from like Cygnus, Sex, all that stuff, you want to hear. And then they're like, we're going to play you 5 tracks off the new album. And everybody heads to the concessions. Everybody goes, toilet break, let's go. Because everybody's so obsessed with the old stuff. And it's been that way with us. But for some reason with this album, we have to keep adding songs.
Do you think it's because there's because the amount of time between albums that this new record, so it's like, first of all, it hit with a massive bang, rise.
I think it hit with a bang, and I think people got into it, and all we were getting, like normal after shows, you're like, you didn't play Cupid's Dead, you didn't play this because you didn't play whatever. This time it's like, you didn't play X out off the album, you didn't play, we're playing 6 songs, we're playing half the album.
That's really unheard of.
That is unheard of.
Explain that to people about that.
I'm telling you, usually bands are excited about their new music and they can't wait that's all they want to play. But normally, man, fans are like, oh God, we got to sit through, like they're all excited about this new stuff. It's not as good as the old stuff. But in this case, we started with 2 or 3 songs on the tour, and we were getting like hate mail. We were getting fans out by the bus and going like, really? You guys didn't play Rebel, and now you're not going to play Banshee, and you didn't play Small Town Beauty? And they're going through the whole album. I'm like, wait, we got some other stuff, the stuff back in the 1900s. Yeah. But it's been really beautiful in that way because it makes us have a lot more fun because it's fresh and it makes the show super exciting for us.
Okay, so let's see here. Let's see what here's some music. Hold on. What is this person saying here? Oh my God. Why can't I click on that? That's weird. Okay. Hey Nuno, greetings from Mineola, New York. Got to meet your nephew Donovan when he was playing with Jose.
Here we go.
And I hope made a turkey jam one day.
Yeah, thanks for the great question, by the way.
Was that a question or not?
You got the great Rick Beato here, and I appreciate the family thing. But you know what, man? We're working right now.
We're working
here.
We're working it. So okay. So what else in your rig has changed throughout the tour? Anything? Has anything broken? What about the rat pedal that you lost that one day?
Oh my God. Well, we've replaced it since. I found one. I had to go through 3 or 4 to find one that had like the magic sauce that I had. But and listen, when you come to the venue tomorrow, I'll show you. It's literally, I don't have anything. I just have this weird domino-looking cabinets that I use, and I have my rig behind me because I have my tech do a few things that he has to switch while some shit. Like, I didn't know this, but I've discovered Like first of all, my rig is super boring. It's so boring. Like somebody's coming down to do a rig rundown in Nashville.
Take like 5 minutes,
and
right?
they want me to be there, and I'm like, I don't want to be there because I'm embarrassed to be there. I'm like, here's my guitar, here's the rat pedal, and here's the head. I gotta go. Nice talking to you. See you. And it's all it is. And I try to tell him that and it's funny because the opposite end, who's opening for us, Vernon, and in Living Color, the pedal board goes from here to the other side of the room. He's the complete opposite of me, and I laugh. Me and him, I go out there, and it gives me a heart attack staring at which pedal goes wrong at what time and what has happened. But they got pedals, man. They know what they're doing. He's got so many array of sound. But for me, it's really boring. It's like I rely too much on my fingers, I think, and I don't want anything in between it. I don't want, and Satriani was on. We just did a Monster Rock cruise, and Satriani was performing there as well, and he'd never seen Extreme Live. And he came to this show. Talk about within 1 week, I got Satriani, I got these people coming up. But he sent me a text right after the show. He's like, what's going on? Your rig sounds huge. And it's funny because there's nothing going on. And that's the key, right? The key is make that amp and that head pump in those cabinets and put a mic on it and make it explode. I'm not anti-effects because I do have a Phase 90 there for a few solos that are off the album. It's the only time I've ever used a Phase 90. If I don't use a Phase 90 on the Rise solo, people are gonna shoot me. And but on the Rat pedal, and they go back and it's just three DSL 2000s, Marshall DSL 2000s.
Yeah.
And I just got a strap over them so they don't fall over. And it's three of them. In case one goes down, I got another one. And that's it. And on top of it is the Rat standing upward, not downward, upward. And the cable's going in.
And that's
it.
The Rat settings are just taped or something?
No,
right?
I check them every night before I go on. I'm literally
you're superstitious,
right?
Oh
my God, I have to know because you can't tell if it's on unless I go out and play. But I'm not going to go out and play, so I have to you'll hear me hit a note tomorrow while this intro for our album's going on, and you hear this one note, C sharp or whatever it is, because it's in key of the intro, and you hear. I'm just like, okay, that's working. All right, that one's working, and that's it. That's all I do. I make sure that the volume is at about 8 o'clock. I mean, the distortion, and that the volume is about 2 o'clock. It's opposite each other, and that's the magic. Wow. That's the magic spot. That's it. No distortion's all the way down, but at about 8 o'clock this way.
Wow.
So that way, when you put it on, it doesn't give you more distortion or more sustain or anything else. It just does this thing that it does. And it tightens up the bottom end. So when you hear, probably tomorrow, you'll notice the bottom end of how when you play riffs, funkier stuff, and it feels more like in the bass range of it's a gunk. It's like I like to be locked in with the bass guitar. So you'll hear that going oh wow, that's where you hear the Rat. That's where you hear the Rat.
Now now you don't travel now without taking your Rat and put it in your bag.
I don't do that anymore. No way. TSA is taking stuff out and they don't put it back, and they just love keeping your shit. I don't know. They think it's like some sort of bomb.
Wait, I want to go back to your volume, your stage volume. What's your amp volume at? Would you say?
I don't play very loud because I thought I was loud.
Are the cabinets facing backwards? And
the cabinet's facing me, but
okay.
I'll tell you why I don't play very loud. I always think there's a sweet spot for a head instead of just a volume thing. And there's one thing that I've done live, and one of the reasons I don't play as much in front of my amp is because I believe that it's lying to me. It's lying to me of what you're going to hear in the audience.
Okay.
And the reason that is because I found out that when I play in front of my amp, I play in a certain way, the attack and everything that I do. And I was like, okay. And then when I it's always a 57 and a 421 side by side. That's how I've been doing it since I was 14.
Is the 57 kind of on the?
They're side by side. And they're just off axis on top. The perfect space between the center of the speaker and the edge of the speaker.
There you go.
That to me is the sweetest, and it's got the best bite and the best low end.
And the combination of those mics.
Oh my God! That's 57 by itself is like, okay. I'm not going to say it isn't good, and the 421 I'm going to say, but when you put them by themselves at even volume, I can tell when a monitor engineer or anybody hits me back or the front of house, I can hear when one is more than the other. And the studio, religiously, I do not move it. And if I want to add an EQ, I do it at the same time together. They live. If I could have it in one mic, it would be in one mic, and that is super important to me. Super important. But what I'm getting to is that the mics is such a part of my sound, I think, that I make sure it's loud enough to feel what I'm doing from behind me, but I use a lot in my wedges. Why? Because I want to respond to what they do to the sound. I believe that my sound is a mic'd up sound. It's not a speaker sound.
Interesting.
See what I'm saying? And I play different. And when I play to what everybody else is hearing, to me, it's way cleaner. It's way more powerful. It's like I can manipulate it. So I manipulate what you're hearing. I don't leave it in somebody else's hands. I'm like, I want to play what I'm playing, and what you're going to hear and what everybody's going to hear is not my cabinet. It's the interpretation of what those mics do. That's the reality. That's my guitar sound.
And how long have you been using that mic setup? Forever.
Ever since I can remember.
Okay, so I want to go back to Van Halen. So on when you listen to the Eruption thing, the drum mic, they have the drum mics that they put on the Sound City on their Sunset Sound website. And there's the feedback in between the first and second phrase that they mute out, that they must have pulled the fader down. I wonder why they pulled the fader down. Yeah, his guitar's feeding back. It's so loud in there.
Yeah, because it's so loud. But sometimes there's two reasons why they would pull the fader down, or why do you hear something doing that? And that means that I'm not even like, this is where I get into trouble. Either it was one take fully.
It is one take for sure.
Right. And I believe that. But sometimes it's one take for sure. But sometimes in back then when you did tape, if there was another take you did, say there was another take, and Ted Templeman's like, I don't know, man. What you did in the middle there, though, even though we want to keep it one take, if we don't close those mics, that's where you can hear the previous take. Sometimes you can hear the bleed through another take, and they might have left that on from the other take, and they might have not I don't know. But I've had to do that in the past, where it's like we've done it in the room. On Waiting for the Punchline album for Extreme, we did it live in the room, all the recording band fucking playing together. But I did this one thing on There Is No God, on track goes There Is No God, and it had a phase 100. I would never use a phase 90, but it had a 100 in there. And I loved what I did on this one thing, but I kept the drum track. And then I was like, the drum mics, I'm hearing a different lick that I'm playing at that time, but I don't want to change the drum track. And sometimes I'll try to hide it, bring it down, bring it on the overheads. I'm not saying that's what happened. That's the only thing I could imagine of why you asked that question. Why would they shift the drum mics? I don't know.
They didn't shift the drum mics. So
why would they bring it down?
And the Eddie thing, his guitar feeds back in the space.
Yeah.
Where he stops, it's just in the drum mics.
But don't you find it strange that if somebody stops, it's feeding back? But only in the drum mics?
No. It's feeding back
throughout, right? Throughout everything.
Well, I'm sure. I think that
you were just saying the drum mics. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, so no. So they. I'm gonna just play it.
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on. Let me find it here. Isolated Eruption. Let's see. EVH.
Because you remember there was a band involved in that, right?
Yes, but they
for
Eruption. Let's see. Eruption. Sunset. Sunset. Sound. Let's see here if they have it. Room mics. Yeah, okay. This is it.
So they're just showing you just the room mics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's right, the room mics.
Okay.
People don't care that we keep geeking out. Let me just start over here. I think they just ducked the fader.
Yeah.
That's the tape.
Yeah, because that's not on there. You're right.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think that's the same amount of time either.
Maybe they shortened the time.
I think they cut tape and they pushed it together. Because that's longer than the album.
That's a longer space, right? Yeah. But it's one take, though.
Yeah, it's one take. Wow. God
damn. Right? And that's the ending. Everything is perfect on it. Listen what he does here.
His 90s even perfect. Everywhere.
Listen, watch.
It's longer.
Yeah.
God damn. Yeah, there was some editing. They might have edited in the master after they mastered it, which is easier to cut than the 2-inch. The 2-inch is scary to fucking cut because it's 24 tracks, whatever. But maybe once they mastered it, they were like, hey, there's this feedback or whatever it is. Maybe they just went like,
let's just zip it together a little bit.
A little bit.
Because maybe through the mics, it was just like, woo, that's kind of.
Yeah, and by the way, they killed two birds with one stone because they're probably thinking two things. Well, maybe we're just used to it now, but But they probably thought not only there's the feedback, but you have to wait so long before you restart. Right. And they thought like, hey, come on, let's go. We got a certain amount of time on the vinyl to get this stuff going. Let's go. Let's move this. And it's a good edit because it's perfect on the album. Enough of a break. Boom. But that, you're kind of going, oh, okay. There's an extra like 3, 4, 5
But that is the take. It's one take.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. And if it is one take, and it sounds like it's one take, then God bless them and everybody that got out of the way and let it be.
How old was Eddie on the first record, you think? Like 23 or something like that?
He was older than everybody thought because they were lying about his age. They were.
Everybody did.
Yeah, everybody did. But back then they were like, hey, there's no Google, man. You can tell him how. But they wanted him to make him seem more like a prodigy that was like coming up. Remember that was Roth. I heard that was Roth. Where it's like, don't just tell him you're freaking 19, 20. Let's go, man. Even though it didn't matter to anybody back then.
How long have people lied about their age in rock music? Forever.
Forever. Yeah.
That's like the oldest thing.
It is.
I need to make a video about that.
I don't because I tell everybody that I'm 38 all the time.
Let's see here. Hold on. I'm gonna go to the bottom of the chat here. Hold on. We're all vampires, Rick. Oh, brother here. Eddie was only 22 on that album. Okay, is that confirmed? 22 at the time. Look at that. See, they can tell now with the Google.
They can tell now, but I think they were telling everybody that he was like a teenager. And that Roth was like, we got this teen right here. We got this teen prodigy right here, right now.
Nuno, when did you first get your like proper guitar setup? I didn't even ask you about that. Like as far as like a full stack and things like that. Like when did you really feel like you kind of got your sound together? When did the Rat come in? Was that really early on?
Yeah, I think the Rat wasn't super early on because I think I probably had a Rat because I didn't have distortion in the head. I think I might have just used it first, like, oh, this is a great distortion pedal. Let me use it for my little whatever. I never owned anything.
Yeah.
I had brothers. We had so many musicians in the house that you would just hope that you'd walk into a room and somebody just left their little amp there or a Fender Twin and you would just be like, okay, let me take this for a minute, and then they'd take it back and whatever. That's how it was. It was just there was stuff everywhere. My dad was a musician as well, so I think the first time I ever bought anything, like even when I auditioned for the Randy Rhoads thing, I think we talked about that when Randy Rhoads passed. I don't know if we talked about that story.
I don't know if we did.
Did we talk about that story with the when Ozzy put out the ad, somebody put out the ad?
Tell the story.
Well, it was this moment, and this is when I really started. This is the first time I ever played through a proper cab. There was Circus magazine, I think, had come out, and Randy, unfortunately, we were all devastated, just passed. And I think at the moment, they were looking for a guitar player. Like, there was none of this. You couldn't go looking for a guitar player. You had to go through magazines. And then there was like a little cutout thing, like almost like an ad, like, send your tape here, Ozzy looking for a guitar player. Like, what? As if somebody's looking for a housekeeper. It was like, it's in the same breath and the same. So I'm like,
I don't know this story.
Oh my God. So I was like, how old was I? Like
Like
junior,
10 years old?
Yeah, 12 maybe, whatever. What was it? What year was it?
81, I think. Yeah.
So I would have just started high school. How old were you when you started high school? It didn't last much long after that. I would have graduated in 84, so I'm a freshman, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like just playing only for a few years, and I'm like, this is my gig. I'm like, I'm getting this gig. I can do this.
You should have had it.
And I'm in, and I'm in like, you know, this 4-family home in Hudson, Massachusetts, and I'm like, and they say send I Don't Know Crazy Train on cassette to this address, and I'm like, I'm going all in, man. I'm like, I called my buddy. I'm like, can I borrow this Marshall head you have? Put it in my bedroom. And then I'm like, I can't do it without a cabinet. I borrowed a 412. I've never even played through one before.
Oh, my God.
I borrowed a 412, and I'm like lugging it up like 4 flights of steps with my friend. I put it in my bedroom, and I'm like, okay, here it is. And then I start playing. I'm like, no. It's missing one thing. I need like an eventide harmonizer or something that makes it sound like Randy, like who quadruple tracks and triple tracks. So I borrowed some harmonizer from somebody. I didn't even know how to run it, and I just put it on my head, and I'm like, that's it. Cassette, hit the box. I'm like, and I'm like playing it probably horribly, and just as a young, you know. And I'm thinking I'm doing the solo. I'm doing the solo to Crazy Train. I'm doing everything, and like, dude, I didn't tell anybody. I'm like, took the cassette, the address, envelope, licked the damn thing, brought it to the post office, brought it in, and I was just like, okay, now I wait, but I'm getting this gig. I'm getting it. And this, you know, and I'm like, so, you know, in the middle of like ditching school and playing guitar in the basement, what I'm doing, every time I come home, I go to the mailbox. I'm like,
oh, man.
Mail's gone. I'm like to my mom, did you receive anything? Did you get anything in? I'm driving my brothers crazy. I'm driving everybody crazy. And I'm like, did it come? And they're like, did what come? The offer, like the plane ticket, and then weeks are going by, and I'm getting really upset, and then I'm like seeing footage, like I'm reading that Brad Gillis is filling in. Now he's on stage, he's on tour. I'm like, oh man, they better not keep him because this is my gig, and I believed it. I was gonna do it. So, long story longer, I'm like waiting. Months are going by, and then I heard they got like Jakey Lee, yeah. And I was like, I might have shed a tear. I might have shed a tear because that was my gig, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't get it. How is this possible? How is this possible? They didn't hear the genius in this like 12-year-old guitar player. So that was, let's call that 1983 when they shifted and they finally got somebody after touring with Brad Gillis who did amazing, all the Black Sabbath stuff. So let's cut to 10 years later. 1993. Extreme is now touring. 94. I'm in the UK waiting for the punchlines that we're opening for Aerosmith. We're on tour with Aerosmith. I'm in the dressing room, and Rod McSween, who books Extreme forever, but also books Ozzy, comes into the dressing room. And he's usually really like, you know, very British and very happy. When he's like sweating. He's like, Nuno, can I talk to you outside? I'm like, what's going on, man? Like, you dropping this as an agent? Like, we're done? Because we called it Waiting for the Punchline tour, Waiting for the Breakup tour, because we were about to break up. And Waiting for the Breakup tour. It's a very famous one. Me and Gary wouldn't even look at each other on stage. It was pretty funny. But he pulls me out, and we're in a hallway. I'll never forget this. He's facing me, and Rod says to me, Nuno, on the way here, Sharon Osbourne called me. And she says that there is a plane, like we'll be waiting for you at Heathrow. Ozzy wants you to be his guitar player. And as he's saying that, right, you know in the movies when somebody's telling you something like either you got cancer or something, and then their voice is just, it goes to silence and you just see them. And it just goes silent in the room. And all I could think about was as he finishes telling me, he goes silent. And then when he finishes, he goes, so what do you think? And all I could say to him was like, they heard the cassette? And I'm like, he's like,
finally.
He's like, what are you talking about? I go, did they hear the cassette, right? And he's like, what cassette? I was literally thinking about the cassette when I was 12. That's how much trauma I had.
That is amazing.
How crazy. It took 10 years for them to hear the cassette. But it finally worked, and I got it and I turned it down. Because I was in a band and I was doing my dream. And then that was the stupidest thing I ever did. Why? Because then I left Extreme about 2 weeks later.
Right.
And I was like, I'm an idiot. Because I'm an idiot. And I could have toured with Ozzy and been in his band and been on the next album. How cool is that? Because, you know, playing with Ozzy was always a thing. It was like almost like a rite of passage. That you were the chosen one to go and like with Zach and to do with Jakey and with Randy, to start with Randy, and you were the disciples of that. And if Ozzy chose you, you were somebody, man, and you meant something, and you were automatically on the covers of magazines. You were automatically on stage with doing arenas. Like you could have never. If I gotten that gig at 12 or 13, you could have never played a club ever in your life playing, I don't know, and then you're playing on an arena with them like the next week. It's insanity.
Yeah.
So when they said that, I was so excited that they wanted. But at that point, I was like trying to carve my own path and be my own person. And I don't know what I was thinking. I should have done it. I should have done it. But yeah, that's the Randy Ozzy story.
Wow, that is amazing.
But how crazy that when you believe, manifestation is real.
Right.
I said to myself, and I wasn't joking, trust me when I tell you, when I was in that bedroom by myself, I didn't tell anybody else, I'm like looking in the mirror going, this is your gig. You're going to get this gig. Now, it didn't happen when I wanted to, but hey, I don't know, 10 years later, 11 years later, it's weird, right? Kind of strange.
It is weird.
It's very strange. And they heard the cassette. That's the only thing I could conjure up to say to Rod. And Rod's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "What cassette?" I'm like, "No, never mind. It's just, I wish I had the cassette. I wish I still had. But you know how it was back then. The cassette went. There was no dubbing. I wasn't. We didn't.
No, there's no.
I was like, I didn't have a double cassette thing. Nobody had money. I was on welfare, man. I was like, I was living off food stamps and shit. Like we didn't have a double cassette player, and that cassette went. I was like, imagine if somebody hears this, somebody out there who has it.
Somebody could have it out there.
Imagine that. I'm afraid to hear it. Maybe it was so bad. I don't know. Or maybe it was great. I don't know.
Okay, if anyone has it out there, anybody watching this right now, there's 5,000 people watching this. A lot of people will watch this. If anyone knows where Nuno's cassette is.
My audition tape to replace Randy for Ozzy, man.
Yeah, and it's what's on it? So Crazy Train?
I don't know in Crazy Train.
Okay.
I'd love to know how bad I was, or maybe I was okay. I don't know. At 12, 13, I have no idea.
I still have every cassette that I think I've ever had.
I have a lot of cassettes at home. I have a lot of them too. CDs, cassettes. I have the little DAT. Remember the DAT
Of course,
tapes?
I got tons of those.
Everything. All my creativity was on those.
Cassette tapes. When I pull out cassettes from the '70s, they still work fine. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's really.
I liked cassettes, man.
Me too.
I didn't mind them. The only thing that was a little bit shady was 8-tracks.
Yeah. Not big into that.
It was a bad idea. I remember my manager, Arma Andon, my first manager with Extreme, he started as a young kid working for the Beatles. So he was job like, go pick up John Lennon, he's at the airport. Like he's like an assistant, go get him and be his PA or whatever. So he said, and this time when you pick him up, when you're in the limo with him, hand him this. It's a new thing. It's called an 8-track. Like the White Album or something was on it, right? So he says that, and they had a player in the thing. So he said he put it in, and he says Arm was like a young, he goes, he's sitting there, and he's like, oh. He said, John was going, this sounds pretty good. And then he started hearing one of his songs fade out, and he started hearing it, and he hears a big clunk, and then the song fades back in. He grabbed the tape, he looked at it, rolled down the window on the highway in Jersey, went, see ya, threw it out the window. A bad idea.
Okay, so for people that don't know about 8-tracks, if a song was too long and didn't fit on this thing, it would change channels or change tracks. In the middle of a song, it would fade it out and then fade it back in. So
imagine you're in the middle of a masterpiece, like Sgt. Pepper's or something, and then it's just like 1 minute. I'll be right with you.
Hang on for a second.
And it's not only you hear it like sonically fade, but then it makes a big clunky noise. It's changing. It's like a switch going, and then it's like, and you're like, it interrupts your whole vibe. You're trying to hang with the headphones like it's over. It's like. But apparently that's how the music business survived. They used to say, like I read a big story on why CDs and why all these formats come. It's not because they're any better, a lot of them. It's because that's how they fooled everybody back in the day to go like, man, it's technology, man. You want to own it on this. So everybody rebuys all the catalog again because they weren't making it off of new artists. They were making it off of catalog.
Okay, but also used to happen with cassettes. Your cassette would go bad, and your record gets scratched and everything. What's a record that you bought? Is there anything you bought more than 3 or 4 times?
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say, look, I probably like all the early Rush albums. I probably owned them multiple times in different formats. All the Rush stuff, Genesis stuff. Oh my God. Yeah. Trick of the Tail, all the way to like and then there were 3 all the way back to like Nursery Crimes, all of it. But there was stuff that you had to have that were like in your wheelhouse that you had to. If it was a new format, you couldn't play it in a car. Imagine, that was the thing. They got you to finally hear it in the car. Yeah, that was the game changer.
That was big.
That was the game changer because that's when you realized all music They lived and died by how it felt in the car, driving in a car.
That's right.
Headphones is one thing. It's an experience. Party is another thing. But when you're driving with your buddies or your friends and Hot for Teacher comes on or whatever it is, and there is something culturally and something spiritually that happens to you that it's just inexplicable. And that's why any song we ever do, anything on 6, anything, I can be in the most expensive studio and I can master it. I don't give a fuck. I'm taking a drive. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't turn me on in that car, driving down Sunset Boulevard, whatever it is, then it ain't finished or it ain't done. Or
now, do you have to know the stereo though in the car pretty well?
Yeah, I used to buy a car based on the stereo. I got to a point where I made some money and people were like, no, you want this car? I'm like, well, let me hear the stereo. And I'd literally base my car on what the stereo sounded.
When I used to have this 1990 Civic, and I kept it for years, and I kept it when I had other cars, but because I would go and listen to music in it, and I would just keep it in the drive. I'd drive it around occasionally and everything, but that was the car.
How bummed would you get when you got a better car and you're like, the stereo system just isn't like that one?
That's right.
Because it would tell you everything.
Yes.
Sometimes it didn't have to be the greatest system in the world. It's something about it that just had everything right where you wanted it, and you'd play a Van Halen record, it felt like that. You'd play your own stuff, it felt like that. This is it. And that's why I loved that at A&M, when I was at A&M Records with Extreme on the lot, with the Chaplin lot, the old Chaplin lot that is now Henson, they had a parked car there the whole time outside that didn't run. And I remember seeing like Springsteen walking out there and getting in it and sitting. So they pipe everything in. They actually had wires running into the car stereo, and it didn't move. It was like a cool old car, like something like vintage, but it wasn't even running. You couldn't even drive it out of the damn place. It was just there, so you could go listen to it in the car, because that's what everybody went to hear their mixes.
Yeah.
Till this day.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's where the magic is. And it sounds different. I would sit there and be driving like with a new album and listen to Rise. I'd be like, okay, let me hear it now with the windows down. Let me hear it out of the window. And it changed the sound. Of
course.
The high end would be less 4K, 5K, because it's not bouncing off glass like in a studio.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, it's a warmer version, but when I turn it up, is there still enough, like, even without the wind? Because the window's going to be down in the summer, man. We got to, who wants to hear music with, come on, top down, windows down. Does it have enough bite and enough crack on the snare without that glass? Insanity.
Okay, so let me ask you
Virgo insanity.
Let me ask you this, Nuno. Should the bass drum be louder than the bass guitar, or this is kind of a thing I think about when I go back and listen to old records. Some records, the bass is louder than the kick, and the kick punches.
The whole 70s was a bass guitar era.
Yeah.
The bass guitar drove the bottom end always.
Right.
Did we love that? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Not so much.
Okay, so you like the bass drum.
I prefer bass guitar louder than the kick for a song than the kick drum louder than the bass. There's nothing that destroys a song to me, and like the feel of it, the bounce of it. Like, you go listen to bands live.
Yeah.
Sound engineers that aren't very good, that mix live, the way they make things feel good is the fucking kick drum is louder than everything else, and it's got tons of 4K click.
Yeah.
But the snare sounds like it's in a toilet or something. They still they don't understand that it's not just about that kick. It throws everything off, and the backbeat is the feel of a drummer. Yeah, you got to get a good kick sound, but the backbeat is the pocket of the song. It's the backbeat it's the heartbeat of the whole song. That's why Stuart Copeland, that's why any drummer, John Bonham, anybody in that top 5 that you're going to say is the greatest, they're probably not even some of the greatest technical drummers in the world, but they have the greatest pockets in the world.
Right.
Because they define, and let me tell you something, a drummer is the hardest thing. You can hear a guitar player go, I know that tone, I know that sound, or whatever. You're hitting a snare that most people don't. It's a model that most people have. You're not sitting there, changing pickups and doing all the stuff, and changing strings. Here's your snare. Yeah, you can do a different head. But when a guy like Stuart Copeland hits the snare and you go, yep, that's him. Or Alex Van Halen, you go, yep, that's him. Or Neil Peart, you go, yep, that's him. Or Bill Bruford.
And
go,
these guys
yep,
can hit
him.
the snare, the same snare, but the way that they hit it is the sound.
The way they hit
Oh
it is
God,
the sound.
Alex Van Halen,
Ed Van Halen,
instantly.
Instantly, and that's their DNA. Their
Yeah.
DNA is very rarely in the kick drum, because the kick drum is, unless it's Bonham. Bonham's DNA is, I'll give him the kick drum. Guys when they used to not have heads on it, or used to be like, don't mic it up, they had it like a proper big tom.
Yeah.
Which it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just a bigger tom.
Yeah.
That made it the kick. But once we started putting mics into it, then then you're manipulating now, where you're opening up the insides. And it can no longer have the DNA that normally, but the snare is your DNA. So these guys knew that Alex Van Halen changed his kit like 5 times, from Simmons to Toms. He always messed around, but he never messed with his heart, which is that snare drum.
Yeah.
Because he knew that that was his personality, that was his energy, that was his pocket, and that was what drove Edward and everybody else. If you literally, how many bands can you take away Edward and take whatever and put just a drum track on and go, I know who that is, I know that's Van Halen, I know that's Led Zeppelin, and not many.
I mean, I just hear all those guys you mentioned. If I just hear their snare, I don't even need to hear the rest of the kit.
You don't even need to hear the rest of the kit, but you're right. Snare, just the snare.
The tone of their rim shots.
Yeah.
The tone of their snare is
everything. How much rim they use, how much less rim they use, how much the center of the drum, where they do it, and they don't even know half the time. It's like when people say, "Oh, you remember we were talking about feel? I picked up Eddie's guitar. What the hell? I sounded like me. Why? Because the way they hit it, where they hit it, and even, of course, you can tune it and change whatever, but man, that's the identity, not only of a drummer of that capacity, but it becomes the big identity of that band.
Yeah.
When they change drummers and it changes that, you're like, uh-oh. You try to imagine the Police without Stuart Copeland.
So I asked Stuart Copeland, whenever it was 2 weeks ago when I interviewed him.
I know.
I said, did you, because everybody used to say his snare, the crack of it was so loud. He's doing that traditional grip rim shot, and one of my friends was like, I heard that he stands on the snare drum head, and of course I knew that wasn't true, but I had to ask him that just because this is like something from high school.
You got it, yeah. It's like it's like Gene Simmons had surgery and he replaced his tongue with a cow's tongue. We believe that. I had to ask Gene when I saw him, and we believed it.
I've been wanting to ask him that since 1978.
It's one of the first questions I asked him. Like, yeah, man, good to meet you. I got a question for you. Cow's tongue. Surgery? Did you replace it? And he started cracking up. I'm like, yeah. He goes, I've heard that one too. He goes, no, it's my tongue. I'm like, okay, I just wondering. It had to
you just need to hear it, right?
Had to know.
I got to say though that I'm glad that Stuart did not play a rim shot near me, because I was afraid.
You would have done what Sting done. You would have quit the band.
I was afraid to. I was just like, I don't want to hear rim shot. I don't think.
Oh my God, it would hurt. It would hurt. But man, it's just like. But you're so right with drummers like that. It's just like even Neil Peart, the feel. And the other thing is the argument of like in a song, when somebody plays to a click or not, or they just play, their 2 is so different than everybody else's 2 and 4. And everybody goes, no, there's just a right or a wrong. You either hit the 2 and the 4. I'm so sorry to tell you that even if it's 10 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, some people have a pocket like Bonham where when normal people would go hit the snare, he does it, and you can see it in his body when he does it. He goes to hit it, we'd go, boom, ga. He's like, boom. He does this thing where it's like, I'm just going to wait that much more to fuck you up and make this thing feel so good that you have Steve Gadd.
Okay, so speaking of Steve Gadd, so I have made it a personal mission to interview everybody that played on the song Asia, that he has the big drum solo on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just interviewed Bill Schnee, who engineered the session this week. I haven't put it out yet.
Okay.
He sent me the live tracking session with no overdubs on it.
Oh my Lord.
Okay, so I'm just gonna play a second of it.
Yeah, I don't want to mess up what's coming.
Because I haven't played it. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna play in the video, but let's see here. Well, it'll be low quality here. So let's see. I sent it to Michael Omardian, who I interviewed, who played on it.
Yeah.
And he and I said, is this everybody that played on? Well, let's see here. Hold on. Oh man, this is amazing to hear. Okay, here we go. And I said, is this the original live track? He said, crazy. Let's see. It includes the Rhodes, which seems to be only addition. Made me think that Fagan could have played it right after they left. He's not sure, but Bill Schnee says he thinks Victor Feldman played it. So this is the actual tracking session. So it's Steve Gadd, Larry Carlton, Chuck Rainey on bass, and Michael Mardian, and then maybe Victor Feldman on electric piano, or Donald Fagen overdub. But these are... Let's see. Hold on. The drum sense. This is off according. The assistant did it secretly. Made a mix of this that night and didn't tell anyone until years later, and he gave it to Bill Schnee. And he's like, "Why didn't you do the rest of the songs?"
I know.
And then the other one here at the end, this is unreal. Right here.
Yeah. You know what? Let me tell you something. You could sit here all day and break that down drum-wise, but you know what the best thing about that is not the technical part of it, is that the groove while he's soloing.
Yes.
Most drummers can play a groove, and then when they solo, it's like time stops. The whole time is bang, ga, ga. It's as if there's a kick going through the whole thing.
Yes.
It's like a disco remix, and it's in time, but everything's just floating in and out of this bounce, bounce perfectly.
Yes.
Just beautifully. It's like honey. Unbelievable. People don't understand like the touch that he has. That snare that he has, almost like paper. It's like little velvet and paper. I don't know how to describe it.
And the drum tuning is, the toms are tuned so perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's magic. It's magic, and you know what it is? It's taste. There's taste there.
Yeah.
It's when you combine. You're a dangerous musician. There are people that can outplay that technically, because that's not the point. But there's people that can play. Outplay me or anybody else. Brian May, anybody else technically. But when you put the passion and the touch and the taste, the choices you make. Just that he's feeding off of bum, 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 bum. That's what he's feeding off of. Remember I told you when people say, hey, when you do a solo, like you have to feed off the rhythm section. That's with you. In this case, you're the drummer, but they're now the rhythm section. Isn't that interesting? Like he flipped it, but he's playing as if they're just clapping with him or something. But it's just bum, 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 and there's imaginary backbeat. This guy has an imaginary clock that's like. So beautiful, man.
So Bill Schnee engineered that. So he mic'd the things up, and so it was interesting to I've interviewed everybody in the room that played, Larry Carlton and Chuck Rainey and Michael Amarty and Steve Gadd, and now I've interviewed the guy that recorded it. The only person is Donald Fagen.
Wow. Yeah. It's one of those moments in time where the perfect example of when musicians feel lyrics, everything like, the word I think I used here, simplexity, comes to mind. It's like, it's so simple. There's no 7/4s, there's no 11-teen, there's no what's going on, there's nothing there, but yet you can enjoy it. They take art that you're supposed to stare at and go like, I don't get it, and they take art that's complex and they make a regular person that's just driving a car feel everything that Steve Gadd's doing. That's magic. That's like sorcery. Like, how do I make this pop in a way? But it's so complicated, and the shit that he's doing there, the drummers are like, oh my Lord, That's what guys like him and Neil Peart and different people did in their realm to cross over. And like, in the perfect example of the backbeat that we're talking about, Phil Rudd.
Oh my God.
I would give my left, arm.
Phil Rudd's feel is...
Phil Rudd, everybody would make it a joke as a drummer. They go, how can you put Phil Rudd as one of the great rock drummers of all time? I'm like, how? He invented like space and time. And when you watch him play, you think you're hearing like playing like girls got a rhythm, girls got. You watch him play and he's dancing while he's like girls got a rhythm, and you can hear that and feel that body. Steve Gadd did that as well. They had a physical element. Bonham had a physical touch to what they were doing in their bodies and their backs and their feet. They were dancing. Does that make sense? I mean, does that sound crazy?
Oh.
Like they're not playing there going like, I'm technical and I'm playing this part and I'm doing this. They don't look like this. They're doing something. You can feel like choreography and a physicality coming through them, that they're moving. They're moving, not just the hands and sticks. It's magical. When a drummer moves, Kevin Figueredo, the drummer I play with right now, and Paul Geary, first drummer Extreme, great pocket. He was one that like gave us that straight head, like gave us that funk, that space. Amazing. But even since Kevin's joined the band, Kevin Figueredo, and I say it on stage and I'll say it tomorrow, I say my favorite drummer that I've ever played with of all time. I played with some heavyweights, the Jam and stuff like that. Kevin you'll see it tomorrow. He's got this pocket. He comes from that Bonham school of like, but yet hits harder, and he's still, it's simplicity, but you don't know he's there until he's not there. And the drummer goes up and plays the same song with you, and you're like, oh my Lord. Like I've had to Get the Funk Out at some jams. And I'm not going to mention names because I always get into trouble, as you know.
You always get into trouble.
I'm always getting into trouble, but there's drummers that I played with that I was like, oh my Lord. When they play what they play, they're amazing. But just playing, I don't know, like a simple thing, I was tripping over myself just to play my own riff. I take Kevin for granted. You take the drummers that, I'm sure that when Sting went off and played with Vinnie Colaiuta, it's great, but come on, for the Police stuff, nobody's going to play the Police stuff like Stewart does, unfortunately for Sting. Whether he likes how fast he plays, and he plays 5 clicks, 10 clicks faster. But Kevin is like that for us. Like he's taken what we do, and you hear him on the album with Rise, and you hear when somebody goes, even on Rise, and they're playing double time, which is just rock, but when they go into that halftime, there's something that just this weight, it makes it so physically beautiful, and Kevin does that. Kevin does that for us in a big way.
Well, Nuno, I am psyched to see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I'm nervous you're coming. I never get nervous when anybody's coming.
Come on.
This is bullshit. Why am I nervous, man? He's going to be sitting there going...
I do want to come and see your... I want to do the rig. I want to do my own rig rundown. I want to come back with
come
my...
down early. Come down a little, I'll walk you down. He goes, where is it? That's it. No, but I still... Am I going to be really kind of disappointed when I just see the rat up there just by itself? No, does it have a glow to it or anything, or no? Dude, I swear to God, when you see it, it looks like a homeless rat. It's like this poor...
It's not like a New York City rat.
No, it's not a Nigerian who's like bawling and walking around. It's just this little thing, and it's just, you see the head, and it's just so lonely. It's just there by itself, and there's one cable going in and one going out. And it just stays, and it just stays like this. And it's like, why won't you like turn me on and off, or even touch me? Why won't you touch me? Why won't you change my knobs?
Is it battery powered, or you got to
plug it in? Yeah, never plug it in. Never plug in any pedal.
Okay, but do you change the battery every day or what?
Oh yeah, we make sure that we change the batteries like maybe every few days, because it's that finding that sweet spot of when a battery is really good.
So I have my rat that you played through last time, and I put it on that board just in case,
Yeah.
But the batteries never go dead in rats.
They don't.
That battery has been in there. I swear.
You know why? Because the rat doesn't do anything. It's like the rat's even going, why do I got a battery in here? I don't even use it.
No, I'm serious. I've not changed the battery in that thing.
You're so right, though. You're so right.
At least 10 years. I can't even remember.
You're so right.
10 years.
Where the Phase 90 is a whole other story.
Right.
You put on the Phase 90 in 10 minutes, it's like, whoosh, and it's done. It's gone. It's like, I need fuel. We have to change it all the time. But I learned recently, I use an octave pedal, Boss octave pedal. I've used it through the years. But specifically on this show on Rise, halfway through the solo, the little percussive thing that everybody was flipping out about, even though it's probably the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. But it's at the end of it on the album, somebody pointed out to me this, like, wait a second, I hear a synth playing with you. And I was like, no, there's no synth. I'm like, there's a synth. I'm like, okay, you got me. I never used, not till recently has Boss had an octave up pedal. It was always the 2 octaves below.
Yeah.
So now they came up with the new one. I forget what the C3, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And I got it, and I wanted to use it. So halfway through this part of it, because I do it twice, I turn it on ever so slightly to give it a little bit of just like a little bit of fairy dust.
Yeah.
And not too many people have mentioned me. Maybe 2 people, and the whole time have gone like, what is going on in the second half of the thing? And I'm like, nothing. Like, but I use it, and I've always had it in line. It was always one of those things I always had in line. But I realized when I took it out, I was like, God damn it, it sounds better without it. I got scared with all my Boss pedals.
Yeah.
My Boss pedals started affecting my tone a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, all pedals. The more
all
pedals
do,
through.
but specifically that era of that pedal made everything a little harder sounding, and my browner, swampier sound was not as much as I like it. So now my tech just pops it in for 2 songs, just for Rise and something else for it. But
so he's actually back there plugging stuff in.
Yeah, but that's it. It's just like 2 settings on a song called Thicker Than Blood that we do. I do this really clean little ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and it's an octave pedal, and then in the second half of Rise, he just that's all he does back there. That's all he does back there.
Well, Nuno, I'm psyched. Can't wait. I want to see the Rat.
Yeah, I see the Rat. I'm gonna introduce you to my Rat. Maybe bring yours. Maybe they can date. Maybe we can introduce them to each other.
Well, hey everybody, leave your comment. It was a pleasure to have you, Nuno.
Man, it's a pleasure to have you, man. Thank you for welcoming me to your home again, and thanks for everybody. I'm watching this thing just scroll, and the thousands of people around, man. I say this every night on stage, man. A band at our stage in our lives, me being 57, Gary in the early 60s, and it's one thing to put out an album that you're proud of, but to get the response and the support and the love we've gotten from fans through you and through just our old Extreme fans, everything else. We're still in shock, honestly, and we're humbled, and we have no business at our age and at this point in our career not doing an album for 15 years.
Apparently that's not true.
Apparently, but you know what? It gives us, it really touches us, and it really makes us feel like, man, let rock and roll, we can still contribute. Everybody out there, man, doing your albums, man, make it mean something, and people will respond. They need it. They need it. It's still alive. Rock and roll is alive and well, my friends. Let's do it.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Peace out.
Have a great night. Hold on. Do this.